I think we just found one deceased person inside the house. What's the address here? There's no address. There's no address. I'm going to wait for you at the gate. I'm going to wait for you to please send somebody really quick.
More questions than answers after the brand new search warrant drops as to how Hollywood legend Gene Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and their dog died. The three discovered this week inside their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. And some reports say they allegedly had signs of mummification.
We're not ruling it out. What I did state was there was no obvious sign or indication of a foul play. There was no immediate sign of foul play. Haven't ruled that out yet. This is an investigation, so we're keeping everything on the table.
We're diving into the latest from law enforcement, what that brand new search warrant reveals, and what the alleged mummification of one of the bodies tells us about what could have happened. We're On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. It's been more than 24 hours since we learned of the deaths of acting legend Gene Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and their dog inside their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. Police say they don't suspect foul play, but their deaths are suspicious enough to warrant a full investigation that is continuing on as we speak. Here are some of the quick facts that we do know at this point before we jump into the details of that search warrant and the uncensored 911 call. Deputies say that a maintenance worker grew concerned when he arrived for work at the 95-year-old Hackman's house, and there was no answer at the door. That worker then contacted the neighborhood security, which did a welfare check and saw Hackman and his wife on the floor through an outdoor window. Deputies say Hackman was found in a mudroom with a cane and sunglasses nearby. His wife, 64-year-old classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, was found in a bathroom. A prescription bottle and pills were found on the bathroom counter near her. Deputies say they also found a dog in a kennel that had died. There were two other dogs still alive on the property. Here's part of the 911 call from someone who identifies themselves as a caretaker for the property, who's telling the dispatcher that they can see the bodies through the window from the outside. Listen to this.
Are they awake?
I have no idea.
Are they breathing?
I have no idea. I'm not inside the house. It's closed. It's locked. I can't go in. But I see them. She's laying down on a floor from the window.
Okay. Okay. Do they appear to be completely awake?
On the way?
Do they appear to be awake or alert?
No. It's not.
Okay. Okay. Did you hear them talk or cry?
No.
Okay. Okay. Are they moving at all?
No, dude, they're not moving. Just send somebody out here really quick.
Okay, my units are on their way, okay?
I'm sorry?
My units are on their way right now.
Now you can hear the panic in that maintenance worker's voice after what they say they saw through that window. When deputies arrived, they say Arakawa's body was in the process of decomposing and there were signs of mummification in her hands and feet. This is all information gathered from that brand new search warrant. Here's what else we learned. 6 things of interest were collected from the Santa Fe home. 2 green cellular devices, thyroid medication, dilitazem medication, which is, by the way, a calcium channel blocker that typically treats high blood pressure, Tylenol, MyQuest records, and a 2025 monthly planner. The search warrant also breaks down the specific details on the timeline of this investigation. We know at 1:43 in the afternoon on February 26th, which was Wednesday, the 911 call that you just heard was placed. 2 deputies were dispatched to Hackman's house. The deputies spoke with the 2 people on scene, that maintenance worker and caretaker that we mentioned before. One of the deputies approached the front door and found it slightly open, and he noted in the search warrant he didn't find any signs of forced entry. When he went inside, he found the bathroom door, which was close to the entrance to the home, wide open. And that's when he found Hackman's wife lying on her right side on the ground. A black space heater was found near her head, and the deputy believed the heater could have fallen in the event the female abruptly fell to the ground. The deputy also noticed an orange prescription bottle on the counter, and there were pills scattered on the countertop. This is also where the deputy spotted mummification to both Arakawa's hands and feet. The deputy inside the home kept searching and later found a dead German Shepherd. That's one of the family's dogs. The dog was about 10 to 15 feet from Hackman's wife in a closet of the bathroom. Hackman was found shortly after in the mudroom with his slippers on and a walking cane by his side. According to the deputy, he felt, based on his training, that Hackman had suddenly fallen. 2 other healthy dogs were found on the property. One was inside, one was outside. Also, from the search warrant, we know the remainder of the property was locked and secured. There were no signs that the home had been rummaged through, and nothing appeared to be out of place. Investigators also noted that the fire department did not locate any signs of carbon monoxide leaks or poisoning. The gas company also responded to the home and did active testing of the gas lines in and around the home. There were no signs or evidence indicating that there were any problems associated with the pipes on the property. The search warrant wraps up by stating the cause of Hackman and his wife's deaths are unknown. It is still unclear how long this couple may have been dead. Here's what the Santa Fe sheriff told local media in a news conference about that. This video is from local TV station KOAT.
All I can say is they have been deceased for quite a while. You know, that's a determination that's better suited for OMI and the experts, but it sounds like they had been deceased for a while, and I don't want to take a guess in reference to how long that was.
I want you to see the place where Gene Hackman lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Just a beautiful property. According to Zillow, this house was worth more than $3.3 million. And you can see from this satellite picture from Zillow's website just how remote this house was. Hackman moved to Santa Fe in the 80s. He told Architectural Digest in 1990 that he wanted to live in New Mexico because he fell in love with the place after shooting some movies there. At this hour, authorities are continuously working to put the puzzle pieces together. So with so much anticipation for the autopsies of Gene Hackman, his wife, and even the family dog that was found passed away, I want to talk to Dr. Michelle Dupree, who is a former medical examiner as well as a former police officer. So the perfect person to talk to as we're all trying to figure out what happened. Doctor, good to see you. Before we get into the specifics and some of the science, because I really want to dive into that, just in terms of what we know at this point, and in your experience as an investigator, but also a medical examiner, how common is it to have this type of death investigation where there are just so many questions so many days later?
It's really not all that common. In fact, that's one of the reasons that we do an investigations. It's one of the reasons we do an autopsy, is to find answers to these things. And it is still very early in this investigation.
Doctor, mummification is a word that was used by authorities when describing the state of Betsy Arakawa, who's Gene Hackman's wife. Many people hear mummification, you think of ancient Egypt and all that, but in your world, what does that tell you that her hands and feet were in that state when she was found?
Well, it does tell us that the body had been there for a while. And we see mummification when it's a dry, arid sort of environment. And it depends on, the environment in the house and where she was found. But probably, the body had been there for a couple of weeks. That tends to happen, first of all, in the fingers, because that's the place where there's the least amount of skin and tissue. So that's not really uncommon.
And knowing Santa Fe, that is a dry climate, how would that impact the state that the bodies are in compared to if they were found in a place like Florida that's far more humid?
Well, we have different types of decomposition, actually, and mummification is what we find in those dry, arid climates. In a place like Miami or someplace where it's cooler, maybe more humid, we'll find a different kind of decomposition. It's called saponification, where the body just kind of almost liquefies. And so it depends on where they're found in that location.
So based off what we know at this point, which was there was also some bloating in her face, you have the mummification, the decomposition of the body. What does that tell you? I know you said a couple weeks. What do you think the timeline is, if you had to guess, as how long this couple may have been passed away for?
Well, again, the information that I have right now, not having seen the bodies, I would say, probably 2 weeks around that time frame. And again, remember that time of death is always an estimate based on the last time the person was actually seen and when they're found.
Yeah, and I know the maintenance worker said that he had not seen them for a period of time. CO poisoning is something a lot of people, carbon monoxide, thought when you hear that it's both members of the family were dead, but then also this dog that was in a kennel was also found passed away. How, even though that there was not a gas leak that was found in the home, is it possible that CO was still the cause of death for Gene Hackman and his wife?
I think that it is possible. I think right now we have to be very careful about ruling anything out. There's something in law enforcement that we call tunnel vision, and we don't want to just pick up on one thing and go with that. We want to leave our mind and our investigation open to all possibilities. When we do have carbon monoxide poisoning, the body turns a particular reddish kind of color. And so sometimes it's often evident, sometimes it's not as evident. So I think all things are open right now.
During an autopsy, how can you determine, beyond just those visual appearances of CO poisoning, how can you determine if that was the cause of death?
We actually can do a blood test for carboxyhemoglobin, and we can tell that way the percent of concentration in that.
And are there other types of, I just think of toxic fumes that can be in the house that, in your experience, you've seen? I mean, carbon monoxide is the one that a lot of people think about because they hear about it often, but are there other types of cases where you see those toxic fumes that do exist in our homes, but may not get as much attention?
There are, again, very rare. Carbon monoxide is the most common, but there are also other things, that we should consider besides just carbon monoxide poisoning. And it could be a variety of causes. And that's why we try to keep our mind and the investigation open.
Where's your mind going when you see what we know thus far and what the causes of death could be?
Actually, I think that we'll probably find a reasonable explanation for this. I don't know at this point what that might be. One thing that I think might be maybe confusing the issue a little bit is the dog. And I think that we should be cautious to remember that perhaps if Gene Hackman and his wife both died, that the dog may have just simply starved to death because he was locked up. He wasn't able to get to food. So that's one consideration. It may not be the only one.
How long could an autopsy take? I know that there could be, we were talking with a lawyer yesterday when this news first broke, who's from Santa Fe and has experience with the ME's office. They're saying that there's a bit of a backlog, but assuming that this case would get some sort of, maybe get to the front of the line, how long could it take until we get some answers?
Well, the actual autopsy itself, as you may know, is 3 parts. It's the actual visual inspection of the body, and there was no trauma found at the time. And then there's the internal examination. And then, of course, the third thing is the toxicology. And toxicology is typically where the autopsy takes the longest to get results back. And that simply depends on how backed up the laboratory might be. Various laboratories have different time frames. It could be months. I hope it won't be, but that is possible that it could be months.
How common is it? I know as I talked about how common some of these cases are, but where there's really no apparent clues at this point. And also Betsy Arakawa, she was in her 60s, so still relatively young compared to Gene Hackman, who was 95 years old and had looked frail in recent years. But to be at this point where there's seemingly no evidence of what may have happened, how often have you seen that?
Actually, again, it's more common than you might hope, but we look at everything. We look at the totality of circumstances. We look at the crime scene and any indications there might be there. There was reported some prescription pills there. What were those pills? How many were there? What are the dates on those pills? And then, of course, toxicology will bear that out if any of those were actually ingested. But we also look at anything else. We call them scene markers to determine, what might have happened. I understand that there was no signs of a struggle. That's a good thing. So we take a look at everything and basically go where the evidence leads us.
Yeah, and turning to kind of putting on your former police officer hat, because when I think of the messaging that's come out from this sheriff's office, and it's the original no signs or there's no believed to be signs of foul play, but then the sheriff has said that everything is still on the table. When you're making a determination that there is no signs of foul play, what goes into that to then go public and make that statement?
Well, of course, the first thing is we look at the body. Is there any signs of trauma outwardly on the body itself? If there are none, then we look at the rest of the scene. Did there appear to be a struggle? Were things in disarray? Were drawers open, like someone was searching through something to look for something? And apparently none of those things really existed. However, it's a little bit unusual to find a husband and wife, both deceased, in different parts of the house for no apparent cause. And so that's why I think determining this as suspicious is absolutely appropriate. It leads us to open the investigation, to dig further into it, and to try and find the answers.
Now, it'll be very interesting to see how this story is pieced together. Certainly a lot of interest, especially considering Gene Hackman, one of the great actors of all time, and a lot of attention now on the medical examiner there in Santa Fe, New Mexico, doing that test. And I'm sure you know very well what it's like to go through the pressure of making sure you figure out exactly what happens. And that's kind of just for you having done that. What is it like? I mean, what type of pressure is this medical examiner under, knowing the examination that they're doing is going to be something that so many people will be focused on when it gets released?
Well, first of all, let me say that I'm familiar with the office there in New Mexico, and they are outstanding, one of the best in the country. So I have full confidence and faith in them. And this case, like every case, though, there is pressure, but because we are very well trained and we know what we're going to do and we know what we have to do, there will be some pressure, but it's just part of the
just part of the job. And going to be very interesting to see what happens. This is a fascinating case that's playing out in New Mexico. Dr. Michelle Dupree, it is always so great to have you on here on Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hackman was a 2-time Oscar winner. He was a 5-time nominee. His career spanned 40 years of movies. So many people have been remembering some of his most iconic roles since learning of his death. In a 2011 interview with GQ, Hackman was asked how he wanted to be remembered. This is what he had to say. Quote, "As a decent actor, as someone who tried to portray what was given to them in an honest fashion. I don't know beyond that. I don't think about that often, to be honest. I'm at an age where I should think about it." We'll keep a close eye on this story as it continues to develop. For On the Case, presented by Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.